Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. Today we're doing a cruiser replay. Makes a change from all those destroyers that I've been showing you recently. And this is Janus Bacchus. He's in a Tier 7 maximum battle on the estuary map, and he's in the American Tier 7 cruiser, the Pensacola. This is a ship I've just recently re-unlocked since the beta test for myself. Again, I actually made it to Tier 8 in the beta with the New Orleans. And I like the Pensacola. Although I can understand why a lot of people don't. The Pensacola gets a bad rep, and rightfully so, because it's a very fragile ship. The armour is bad, and it's got a big citadel. It's been said that the Pensacola is basically made out of citadels, and that's certainly, well, it feels like it when you're sailing this thing. It's very, very well armed. It's the first of the American cruisers to get the 203mm guns, and they are very, very good if they do have a slightly long reload. But the ship's very fragile. At times it feels like every shot that hits you is a citadel penetration, and you have to be very wary in this thing, particularly when battleships have got their guns pointed towards you. And if you don't keep the ship angled, enemy cruisers are going to penetrate your citadel as well. The Japanese cruisers, all of the Japanese cruisers that this thing is going to face have 203mm guns from Tier 5 and the Furitaka on up. The one good thing is that the Japanese cruisers tend to have slow reloads on those 203mm guns, at least until they get up to Tier 7 and 8. Of course, they've also gone and introduced more rapid-firing cruisers now, haven't they? The Russians and the Germans. And they are all capable of doing significant damage to a Pensacola thanks to its very, very bad armour. The Pensacola, of course, can do a lot of damage in return. It is really a bit of a glass cannon. It has 10 of these 203mm guns, and American 203mm armour piercing is very, very good. Captains who graduate to the Pensacola from the Cleveland tend to have a very, very steep learning curve, and this is probably why people don't like the Pensacola, because you're in a fragile ship with completely different guns to anything that you've been used to up until this point in American cruisers. You're used to, with the Cleveland's guns for example, firing these massed barrages of high explosive spam that take forever to get to the target. They go straight up, they come straight down, they seem to hang in the air forever. You have to give massive amounts of lead to the target. The Pensacola, completely different. 10 guns, 203mm, flat firing arc. With the Cleveland, depending on the range that you're engaging the target at, you could have anything up to 3 different salvos of shells in the air before the first salvo has hit the target. You don't get that with the Pensacola. And so, when you do get the Pensacola for the first time, you have to make your salvos count, much more so than you used to in American cruisers up to this point, and pretty much everybody who hits you scores citadel hits. And so, a lot of people get very, very frustrated with the Pensacola, but once you start figuring out where you need to aim to get these shells on target, the Pensacola can do a monstrous amount of damage. Just look at this poor old Albert. He's citadeled him already, knocked his engines out. He sees the torpedoes from the Königsberg. He thinks, "Ugh," turns the wrong way, straight into the island, dead in the water. And the torpedoes are going to finish him off. So Janus can now switch his attention to the Molotov. Molotov's just sunk the Königsberg, and now he's turning to face Janus. Janus's forward turrets fire just as the Molotov loses a third of his health to another ship, and then another third of his health to the forward turrets, and then all the rest of his health to Janus's rear turrets. 2/3 of that ship's health gone, with one full salvo from all 10 guns on the Pensacola. And a little assistance from some other friendly ship, who shaved the first third of the Molotov's health off before any of Janus's shots landed. That was a full health Molotov. Gone in seconds. The guns on the Pensacola really are very, very good. The only downside is they take about 14 seconds to reload, and that's quite long for a cruiser, and this is why, well, you have to know where to aim when you're in the Pensacola, because sitting around waiting 14 seconds to get the guns reloaded and have another go can really, really hurt in this thing. This is not like the Cleveland, which you can have multiple salvos of shells in the air on the way to the target at any given time. You can basically walk your fire to the target in the Cleveland. The Cleveland does come with its own problems, of course, because of how long those shells do stay in the air on the way to the target. And generally speaking, when you first get the Cleveland and you start engaging targets at maximum range, you always aim short. You never give nearly enough lead. But by the time your shots start hitting the water behind the target, you can start basically, because the guns fire so quickly on the Cleveland, you can walk your fire in towards the target. You can't do that in the Pensacola. The guns just don't fire fast enough. You have to make every salvo count. Now Janus here had high explosive loaded because he did spot a sneaky little destroyer over on his port side. But then he decided to go for this for attacker after capping, and there are torpedoes in the water, but he's confident they're not aimed at him. He's cleared the barrels of his high explosive, and now he's loaded the armor piercing. And the for attacker only has to take one citadel to think, screw this. Screw this for a game of soldiers. I'm getting out of here. Turns and starts motoring in the other direction, keeping the ship angled, and right there you can see the shot striking the side of the ship and just bouncing clean off. It's not that the for attacker's armour is particularly strong, it certainly isn't. It's a lightly armoured cruiser just like the Pensacola. But at that kind of angle, they were coming down, hitting the side of the ship from above and just ricocheting straight off. Unfortunately, he timed that turn just a little bit too soon. He thought, if I can turn now and head back towards friendly ships, while I've got this island between me and the Pensacola. But he turned a little bit too soon. Janus was able to get a couple of citadels into him before the island occluded him, and he's able to finish him off before he can get into concealment behind that second island. The for attacker, realising he was about to die, switched to high explosive with his final salvo in an attempt to get a fire started before he died. And it worked, but, well, with nobody else shooting at him, there's absolutely no reason why Janus shouldn't use his damage control ability to extinguish the fire. And while Janus is farming some cheers easy damage with high explosive on this completely AFK New Mexico, did you notice that Janus didn't fire every gun that he had at the for attacker? See, the for attacker survived long enough to get a couple of parting salvos off and start that fire, which did cause some damage. But if Janus had actually fired with every gun that was ready as soon as it was ready, the for attacker would never have survived long enough to fire that high explosive salvo towards the end. Janus was actually keeping a couple of guns in reserve to see how few guns he could use to sink the for attacker. I've done that sometimes myself. I'll see an enemy ship on low health and I'll think, well, I don't need to use every gun I've got to finish this guy off. 2 or 3 armor piercing hits are going to be enough, so I have 5 turrets to choose from and I only fire 2 of them, and in the time it takes the shots to get there and miss or bounce or over penetrate, this guy's return fire, and then I'm unloading with the other 3 turrets and they kill him. But if I'd fired all 5 of the turrets at the same time before he could return fire, I would have probably sunk him, wouldn't have had any guns in reserve, and I wouldn't have taken any damage from his parting shots. Speaking of parting shots, do you remember the New Mexico? Cool cruisers don't look at explosions. That's actually me switching to the external camera, just to witness the New Mexico kill. Anyway, New Mexico dead. Why is he spotted? Enemy aircraft are too far away. No other enemy ships with line of sight. Well, there is, you just can't see him. There he is, just popped up, Minakazi. Secondaries open up, but, well, you're never going to kill a destroyer with your secondaries in a cruiser. Cruisers don't specialise in secondary armaments. The Pensacola's secondaries aren't particularly good either. So he's reloading the high explosive, and he's not the only one who's seen this guy. First set of shots out, good damage, and you can see he's thinking about turning away and get some distance between himself and the Minakazi, but then he thinks, torpedoes, bad idea. Slows the ship down drastically, turns to port, guns are almost reloaded, shots out, avoids the torpedoes, finishes off the Minakazi, and all that drastic anti-torpedo manoeuvring has completely ruined the aim of the Atlanta, who's taken him under fire in the background over there. The Atlanta was aiming long for a fast-moving cruiser, and Janus slammed the brakes on and turned. The Atlanta saw his shots miss by hundreds of meters and realised that Janus had slowed almost to a stop, so he shortened his aim, and Janus went full power to the engines and surged ahead, and all of those shots missed. The Atlanta, I think, has only actually hit him once, but Janus has switched to the armor piercing in just a fraction of a second too late to be able to get some shots out at the Atlanta. Did maybe 1 or 2 shells sneak past the mountain? I'm not seeing any hits recorded. Oh well, the Atlanta's gotten away with it for now. Actually, just going back to Japanese destroyers for the moment. Have you seen what's happening? They're introducing a second line of Japanese destroyers into the game, splitting off at tier 4 from the Asakaze. The Mutsuki and the Minakaze are going to be the two tier 5 Japanese destroyers, and there are 4 new destroyers being put in, but in order to shuffle them around, they've had to down tier the Mutsuki, the Hatsuharu, the Kagero, and the Fubuki. No word as yet on how players are going to be compensated because, well, I own a Hatsuharu, and I had to grind out enough experience for a tier 7 destroyer to unlock the Hatsuharu, and it's being turned into a tier 6 destroyer, so can I have my experience back, please? I might like to use it on something else, and ooh, that's more like it. There's the Confederate Award. Lovely little citadel there on the Atlanta. Can we have some more of those? I think he made it with, well, certainly the 5 guns from the 2 rear turrets made it through. Any hits? Some hits, some decent amount of damage. Getting back to the game, however, he's actually capping B here. You notice he capped A earlier, and he and a Congo are now sitting here in the B cap circle, and they're about to claim it, and they need to because the enemy team control 2 of the caps. And now he's switched back to the high explosive, and he's raining death and destruction down on this Colorado, who appears to be trying to finish off the Congo for the moment. And here comes the fire from the Atlanta as well. Yeah, they're focusing the Congo down. He's on the lower health. So Janus is going to take advantage of being relatively uninterrupted and get as much high explosive damage done to this Colorado as he possibly can. And oh dear, they've just sunk the Congo. So both of these guys are going to be turning their attention to Janus now. And he's in a ship that's made out of citadels, and he's got a Colorado firing at him. Now you can see his attitude indicator down there on the little paper doll and the compass, and you can quite clearly see he's getting the hell out of here. He's keeping all of his guns firing, but he's doing it at as steep an angle as possible to minimise the chances that he's going to get a citadel hit from this Colorado. And you can see that he's hitting this Colorado a lot, but he's doing very little damage with this high explosive. He's doing like 500 damage here, maybe 900 damage there, despite the number of hits that he's actually landing on target. Now, at the time that I recorded this replay, I haven't yet turned on some of the enhanced interface options. And people who've watched some of the more recent videos have noticed that different kinds of ribbons are popping up to indicate exactly what's happening with your shots when they hit the target, whether they're being absorbed by the armour, whether they're ricocheting, over-penetrating, penetrating, and so on and so on. And they've assumed that I'm using a mod. I'm not. It's all part of the game interface. I'll show you in a moment, but for now, that last salvo is in the air. It's in the air. It's on the way. It's on the way. It's sunk the Colorado. And there's the Kraken unleashed for 5 kills. We're just going to interrupt the gameplay here to show you what I'm talking about in the game interface options. And this is where you enable all sorts of good stuff under the controls section. And down here, the bottom of the screen, tick this for detailed battle ribbons, so you can see exactly what's happening with your shots when you hit the target. Also, you can click up here to get a loading indicator for your torpedoes, and if you want to see the zones marked by the boundaries of your smoke screens, you tick this little box over here. All part of the game. And after that short word from our sponsors, back to our regular programming. So, Janus has just gotten his 5th kill, and the Kraken Unleashed award to go with his Confederate. Okay, it's 3 on 3. We've got Janus here in the Pensacola. We know where 2 of the enemy ships are, Cleveland and New York up there. Up to the north, about to try to cap the northernmost capture point, is a friendly Cleveland, and he's shooting at the New York. Down to the southeast, we have a York, and he has the range to shoot at the New York as well. So all 3 of these cruisers are about to start firing high explosive at this New York, and the New York's going to make a very, very noob mistake here. Janus's first salvo is going to set him on fire, and you saw the first salvo from the York there landing short, but the York is about to readjust his aim as the New York, who's only birding in one location, uses his damage control ability to put the fire out. The York is busy reloading. There it goes. His shots are now on target. Janus already has the range, and he's scoring successive hits. Any further fires that get set on this New York class battleship, he's not going to be able to do anything about. One fire isn't going to kill him, but he's now got 2 cruisers because the friendly Cleveland has turned his fire onto the enemy Cleveland, who's coming over to try to prevent him from capping. But with 2 cruisers firing at you with high explosive, any further fires that get set on this New York, he's not going to be able to do a thing about. And oh, he's turning around to shoot at Janus. And there's another fire, and that is going to continue to burn. Janus turns the nose of the ship in. More high explosive damage. Fire coming in from the York as well. Fire coming in from the Cleveland. It looks like these guys have decided they need to focus the Pensacola down. Janus is now going to be vulnerable in the turn. He doesn't want to get any closer to the New York, and he's very lucky to not get citadel there. Set another fire on the New York. That's 2 fires now burning, which the New York can do nothing about. More shots going in there from the York as well. Those shots hit. The New York can now not return fire. Nice old island in the way. He's continuing to burn. He's coming into range again. He's trying to sail away. That's 2 fires burning. The York hasn't actually managed to set another one. And there we go. Kill number 6. And there's the high caliber award. Now the Cleveland up to the north has just solo capped B. And he's found the Atlanta, but he's now trying to fight off 2 cruisers at the same time, and he gets sunk. But with a parting salvo, he manages to hit the Atlanta and nearly outright kill him with a salvo of high explosive. And it's not immediately obvious at the time, but he's actually set that Atlanta on fire. And you can see that the Atlanta is now trying to cap B, but he's burning. And he's not going to... There we go. He's been sunk. The Cleveland got him. It's just a flesh wound award for the Cleveland. And if I'd been the Cleveland, I'd have been quite happy about that. But, well, as you can see in chat, for some reason he doesn't seem to be. He's done actually quite well out of this game. He's gotten 2 kills, one of them a tier 7 cruiser, the Atlanta, which earned him the It's Just a Flesh Wound medal. He's managed to solo cap a flag. He's going to be doing quite well out of the results of this match as far as experience and credit are concerned. Yeah, he's been incredibly salty about that Atlanta in chat. Ah well. So, what's going to happen now? Well, Janus's team control 3 of the flags. There's 1 ship left on the enemy team, it's a Cleveland, and he did have a fair amount of health remaining. Janus, not so much. Unfortunately for the Cleveland, there. Now he's trying to cap B. I'm not quite sure what the Cleveland's doing at this point. He's never going to win by capping. Janus's team control too many of the flags, and both Janus and the York appear to have already agreed that they're going to go and cap D. So, if the Cleveland was ahead on points, chasing the cap circles would be the right thing to do. Keep as much distance as possible between himself and Janus and this York over here. Take B, and then keep heading west, take A, just to maintain that points lead, and keep yourself alive and run the clock down. But that's just not going to work because of the points difference between the 2 teams. There you go, he's capped B. So he slowed the rate at which Janus's team are gaining points. But Janus's team still has such a huge points advantage. The only way the Cleveland is going to win is by sinking 1 of the 2 pursuing cruisers and hoping they don't cap D. And of course they are capping D. And the second that cap point turns to a diamond at the top of the screen, the Cleveland knows that the only way he can win this game is by sinking both of them. And the Cleveland is going to have to do it really fast because Janus's team are capping D and they're at 958 points. And there's the Cleveland. Now he could have just taken the loss, escaped, solo capped B, he's done alright, he sank 2 ships and saved himself a repair bill, but he's coming out and he's having a go. And he gets the first salvo off, and unfortunately for the Cleveland, well, he's going to need every gun firing, but Janus's first salvo knocked out one of his gun batteries, so this is... The Cleveland's got no chance. Look at this, 982 points, 988 points. There's a Citadel. He's given him the side of the ship, but he has to get every gun firing to stand a chance, and there's absolutely no way this is going to happen. 994 points, and 1,000 points just before Janus could potentially have gotten himself his 7th kill with armor piercing straight into the broadside of that Cleveland. But well done to the Cleveland for at least trying. And of course, very well done to Janus Bacchus. 459,000 credits for just short of 144,000 damage done. 6 kills, 4 fires set, most of them against that New York. 12 citadel penetrations with these really nice, punchy 203mm guns on the Pensacola. And just before we put today's video to bed, some news. Hopefully you're already aware of it, but as of today, the 8th of September, at least on the EU server, the next test server for World of Warships is up and running. And as well as new maps and an armor viewer for your ships in the port, all kinds of balance changes, if you are playing on the test server, don't be surprised if you run into the occasional British light cruiser. They're available for super testers, and it may or may not be the case that certain community contributors are being invited to play test these British cruisers on the test server as well. So if you do create a test server account and you see any British cruisers on the enemy team, be gentle, because you never know. One of them might be me. Anyway, hope you enjoyed today's video. That's it for today. As always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.